I told you. Yeah.
I wrote one for you.
The ultimate reality is that what we have is on loan from our children. That we are all equal in the eyes of creation. And that this moment is sacred for the next 7 generations. I wrote Reset trying to understand our psychosis. And what better way to examine our psychosis than to look at the Old Testament? And if you ultimately realize, I read about 8,000 pages a year, so I've gotten to such a point, it's almost madness. You start to connect the dots. And some of the major dots are that there is no God in the Old Testament. It's a story about turf wars. An Elohim who ruled, an Elohim who ruled above the Elohim, of which one was Yahweh, who chose Jacob, who was the 7th descendant of Adam, and was a very jealous, xenophobic, ruthless, sadistic murderer. I'll give you an example. Psalm 129, line 9. Blessed is he who takes the little one and smashes him against the rocks. Moses, just according to Yahweh's wishes, sends out his generals to slaughter the Midianites, which they do. But he starts reaming them out because they didn't follow all his orders, as demonstrated in Numbers, meaning Numbers in the Old Testament. Why? Because they didn't murder the women and children. It goes on, and 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 it goes on. Genocide, rape, children held responsible to the 4th generation for the sins of their fathers. That you have to circumcise males to be identified as the clan of Yahweh, including your household slave has to be circumcised. But did he say nay to being slaves? No. The instrument of purpose is the identification through circumcision. It gets worse and worse and worse. And what ultimately happens is you start to realize that there are etymology problems going back to ancient Hebrew, where, to be fair, you don't even try to attempt to transliterate the meaning of a word like kavod or rosh. In essence, what you start to realize, we're talking about extraterrestrial contact. And when you consider the Sumerian texts, which there are now almost 2 million of them, and 20% have been transliterated. As a matter of fact, there's a website that you can put them up and see the translations. It's quite remarkable. You realize that they were in desperate needs to protect their own atmosphere, and they needed to dig the gold out and turn it into monoatomic gold, which is a very high healing agent, to try to attempt to save their atmosphere. And the Agigi, who were their slave labor force, ultimately mutinied, and it was a bloodbath. So something had to be done. And Enki, who was Lord of Earth under his younger brother Enlil, with his half-sister chief medical officer wife Nenharsad, created a new slave force, just smart enough to be able to do the task at hand. Probably taking Homo habilis and Homo erectus, maybe both, and mixing their own DNA. This is all written down. And coming up with, ultimately, it was failure, and finally Nen Herzog decided to use herself as a host through in vitro fertilization, and they had their first success. Then other women stepped up to do this, and they came up with 7 black-headed pairs. Still, like mules, they weren't able to breed. Refined further, they did, and they started to proliferate, which absolutely infuriated Enlil, and subsequently to the predication of destruction, i.e. the deluge, which is repeated in so many cultures, Upnudapashtim in the tales of Gilgamesh, Ultrahasis, Noah, repeated stories. But the point of my diatribe is, it seems that within all the redactions and the subsequent need to create a linear text of all these individual stories came the New Testament, even with Josiah, who was a young child when he became the king of the Jews and swayed by his own priesthood to follow the laws of Moses, and thus exterminated all pagans and their traditions. The continuance of adhering to such a thing that seems to permeate our society today within our highest subjective approaches to spirituality, war, rape, and genocide continue as I speak. So that's 70 pages of forward. Then I go into the namesake of the book, Reset. And I'll just read a few things. The omnipotence of the totality of totality by its very nature is one all-inclusive stasis of grace and love. Spirituality is spirituality, the conscious willingness to seek a higher state of being. Though community and tradition are important, religion is politically materialistic, a parochial philosophical nation state that consolidates its power through demanding the only way to become spiritually evolved is through their specific organization, and thus the cause of all war, rape, and genocide. Freedom exists through the distribution of power. Despotism through its concentration. Let's begin. Quiet ourselves, still, in order to hear all that moves, the cascade of infinite points of light guiding discovery of all that has ever been. Riding our breath on the waves of possibility, this moment in time that is always searching for its enactment, expanding our reason to be, each star a wish fulfilled, waiting, wanting, willing our direction. This Mobius life continues, walls dissolve as we're carried on winds of heliotropic aspirations, the gravity of weightlessness, our sole desire. One. Once upon a time we knew the cohesive state of ourselves, the glue, how we could visualize the world to come and move all objects with use of mind, travel great expanses with just our thoughts, connecting all the dots out there in time. How quicksilver was this time, the world we so need now that we once knew, crossing the Jordan deep within our thoughts, within the mixture of this psychic glue that spins such intricate webs in our mind of stories so heartwarming, yet to come. And what of these dreams to come? where light speed takes us anywhere in time, point to point within the reach of our mind, so to find the questions we never knew, to deconstruct and separate and glue through trial and error, focusing our thoughts. Power to be held through thoughts fired by our imagination to come, no matter how incongruous, the glue that holds us fixed to every point in time. We reach for distant worlds we never knew, a universe we grow within our mind. Mastery of just one mind, the zero separation of our thoughts, one singular consciousness we all knew, and visualizing what is first to come, suspending ourselves endlessly through time, telepathic, teleclinetic glue. This cohesive oneness, glue, the outer inner universe of mind where we cast ourselves anywhere in time within the weightless freedom of our thoughts, from all that was to what is first to come, what we may have forgot, but always knew. This glue, these thoughts expand our potential, our mind, the universe of what's to come, the endless time of what we know and knew. The manner in which we choose to live our lives is how the world will be. Once upon a time, I knew love so pure it purified me. The distortions of time, the romantic telling of myths and legends, all contain parcels of truth to see. Such a fantastic world created just for you and me, too. In Eden, where it began, an ancient Hebrew taking of the fruit, the act of sexual consummation. Y chromosome Adam created first, mitochondrial Eve his partner. Thus began the tree of life and knowledge. What was to be this knowledge so long ago, where we are told began, and this other from ourselves, our partner who convinced us the eating of this fruit, such responsibility to be first, all whom we begot through consummation. It was this consummation that planted seeds in order for knowledge, showing questions of what to explore first, deep in our past, to learn how we began. A wealth of answers, succulent this fruit, endeavors not alone we must partner. You and I, you are the one I partner, the only hope for me in consummation. I knew well from the plucking of the fruit, unleashing endless torrents of knowledge, and the very reason why we began, that it was you whom I had to choose first, and choosing you to be first always meant to be, you are my partner. Thus a sacred androgyny began, the continued need for consummation. From these seeds we bear all the knowledge, growing into the wisdom which we call fruit. Very succulent this fruit, so tenderly grown in this garden first, ripe beyond expectation. This knowledge so perfect, this place for us to partner. Our inevitable consummation had no other choice, so thus began. We eat of this fruit. A bond we partner, claim our right as first through consummation, and evolve through the knowledge we began. I look at my reflection, so lost within your smile, a journey through the eons that has lasted all this while, so sure that I have known you, myself that you have known, and all the wonders yet to come that love has ever shown. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is our moment to demonstrate to the world the reality of literacy and consciousness as expressed through our individual ability, regardless of station, regardless of facility, yet our ability to communicate. You are welcome to come. All of you are welcome to come, who hold sacred this power of literacy, the power of the word, our only true ability to demonstrate democracy and freedom. I don't care what you look like. I don't care how you need to pursue your spirituality. I don't care what you inevitably do with your choice for yourself, short of, and I'll come after you with a vengeance, the sanctity and the purity of innocence and wonder of a child. And that's up to 18 years of age. Without innocence and wonder, we have shit. So those of us who are here are dedicated to this cause. And we will overcome, because the present state is feeding on its own entrails. And it doesn't take the entire planet to change the planet, because the power of the light is so strong. Trust me, you'll never be bored. That's the ultimate gift. And the synergy and the lessons that we leave behind through our documentation is the gift that we give ourselves, and the pride to know that we have been synergistic in the process of goodness. Peace, and bless you all.